Nintendo President Furukawa addressed the controversial game keycard at a recent shareholders meeting, and one shareholder didn't hold back, calling them a half-baked measure and questioning why so many third-party publishers use them.
Hello everyone, Magbo Gaming here once again, back in Angry Guy's channel. And this topic is gonna be a confirmation of Nintendo letting us know that, yep, digital media is here to stay. Game key cards are here to stay. The physical media is basically dead. So why is that? Well, we're gonna find out pretty shortly in this video. Before we get started, be sure to check out Angry Guy's Crypto Academy, which if you want to learn more about crypto, about ways that you can invest in something that you will actually own and you will actually make profit of it, because Nintendo and many other companies out there want you to own nothing and be happy. So you can learn how to invest into crypto there, because hard times are coming and you have to be prepared so you don't get left in the dust. Also check out Angry Guy's Rumble, which is pretty much free of censorship over there, unlike here on YouTube, which, you know, we gotta be careful what we say. And yeah, and check out my gaming channel at Magbo Gaming. I just recently did a Nintendo Switch rant. Nintendo Switch rant of the prices increasing and stuff. So you want to check my perspective on it, then feel free to check out my channel, my latest video. So yeah, let's get started with this commentary on the physical media basically dead. Let's see what Nintendo responded to this whole backlash on the game key cards and all that stuff.
Nintendo President Furukawa addressed the controversial game keycard at a recent shareholders meeting, and one shareholder didn't hold back, calling them a half-baked measure and questioning why so many third-party publishers use them. Furukawa explained that the game keycards exist because of the larger game file sizes on the Switch 2, and that they were introduced as an option to help third-party developers cut costs and bring games to retail. But Furukawa didn't answer whether they were hurting third-party game sales. Nintendo of America President Doug Bowser later confirmed that the format was designed to attract third parties, but fans aren't loving it. The good news is Nintendo says it won't use game key cards for its own first-party titles. Are game key cards the future of retail or a failed experiment? Let me know and follow for more.
So, Nintendo finally addressed the whole game key card situation with the Switch 2. And surprise, surprise, it's exactly what I've been warning you about. If you're into physical games, collecting, preservation, or just like actually owning what you pay for, yeah, this one stings a little. But also, it makes sense. And that's the frustrating part. So let's break this down. What Nintendo said, why they said it, why game key cards exist, and what this really means for the future of physical games. Not just on Switch 2, but gaming in general. And hey, if this is your first time on the channel, welcome. Hit that subscribe button. I rant about gaming stuff, dig into industry decisions, and try to give you the no BS take. Let's jump in. So for anyone who's not...
So basically, this is Nintendo's way of saying, we have to move on from this. We have to surveil all your games that you have. Any games that you buy from us, pretty much we own them, because if we disable your Nintendo account, you can't even use them. And if you buy any digital games from us and we break your console and stuff, you will lose all rights to all your digital games from your account. If it's the case that the Nintendo Switch Online account gets suspended. Yeah, so it says get used to it, pretty much. Get used to it.
Caught up. Here's what's going on. With the Switch 2, Nintendo has introduced a new kind of physical media called the game key card. And it's not what you think. You go to the store, buy the box, open it up, and instead of getting a game cartridge with the full game on it, you get a little cart that acts as an activation key. That's it. You still have to download the whole game from the internet. It's like if someone handed you a DVD case for a movie, and inside was just a paper slip that says, go stream it on Netflix. It feels physical, but it's not. And yeah, this has pissed a lot of people off.
It's like if you're someone that just wants to own something, you have no internet whatsoever in your house, or you barely have good internet speed, and you want to be able to stream something that you already paid for. Well, guess what? Without the internet, you're not going to be able to even use the content whatsoever. So, at this point, is it your content? No. And Nintendo with all those game key cards. And here's the thing too. It only costs about, estimately around 30 cents to 50 something cents to get a game key card cartridge for you to put your key card codes there. Not the game. Because apparently the whole game itself, I heard it was like $16 a pop for a 64 GB cartridge, and there's no options for like 32 or 16 gigs like I said before in previous videos. And that is a problem because like you're not giving them too much option. Look at like disc that people buy for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox and stuff, where they could put your games in there. And I think that the highest DVD this space is probably, I don't know if it's 64, 32, or 100 and something. I kind of like lost track of it because I know that DVDs are like 4 gigabytes or 8 gigabytes or something like that. I know that Blu-rays are a lot more. They're probably 32, but the highest probably 64 or more. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't done my research there. I'll admit that. But the whole plan of the matter is that it costs very, very little for people to buy disc. Like $1 or less or something to buy a disc so they could burn their AAA title and then most of the game is there. But even the PS5 and Xbox Series X and stuff doesn't have the full game on the disc because the disc space is not enough to fill in a really big budget game, which is hundreds of gigabytes big. Final Fantasy Rebirth is like 160 or 70 something gigabytes, which most likely would normally not fit in the disc. So that's how I see it. I'm definitely gonna do my research for the next time. Sorry about that.
Off, especially physical collectors. You know, the folks who like having a shelf of games they can touch, trade, lend to a friend, or play offline in 10 years when the servers are gone. This format kind of kills all of that. And I get it. I do. I'm one of those people too. I still buy physical games when I can. I'm a retro guy. I like owning stuff. I like knowing that if I spend $60 or $70 on a game, I can hold it in my hand and know it's mine. But here's the part that nobody likes to hear. This is happening for a reason. And that reason is money. So, here's what went down. During Nintendo's recent shareholder meeting, someone actually asked them about the game key cards. Basically, aren't these things going to hurt third-party support? Especially with the 64 gigabyte limit and no true physical version? Nintendo's response? The game keycard doesn't contain the game itself. A download is required when playing for the first time. We adopted this format because the Switch 2 has more internal storage than the original Switch, and will work to ensure third-party software.
Yeah, just because it has more internal storage than the original Switch doesn't mean that it's any better than what the competition has right now. I mean, there is a 1 to 2 terabyte Xbox Series X. There is I think the PS5 is 1 terabyte if I'm not mistaken. I think there's 2 terabyte versions out there. And yeah, those are the competition. And it's like 4 times more than what the Switch 2 is offering right now. So just by buying like a couple of game keycard games that are over 50 to 60 gigabytes like Yakuza and stuff, they're gonna fill up very quickly on your hard drive, and then you're gonna have to get another express card, and then hopefully you could use that express card that's like 64, 120 something gigabytes. If, God forbid, there is a game key card for Final Fantasy VII Remake or Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I know for a fact it has a ton of gigabytes of storage that is required for you to play the game. Instead of having it in the cartridge, well, it may not fit in the cartridge either unless they somehow be able to make cartridge that's 128 gigabytes or more that could possibly fit it somehow. But then, you know, those games are going to cost more, but you know what? At least we'll own the game if the game is in the cartridge, and then we could play it right away. I had to wait many hours for me to download Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on my Steam Deck. Yeah, I had to wait like throughout the night. So it's like, it's no longer the convenience that you could just pop in the game, instantly play it. Sure, game key cards, you actually could pop in the game and play it once you download it for the first time from the internet.
Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now.
Sells well. Now that might sound harmless, but read between the lines. They're saying, this was the cheaper option. And now that Switch 2 has more storage built in, they expect you to be okay with it. They're not walking it back. They're not promising real physical copies later. They're basically saying, this is how it is, get used to it.
Yeah, basically that's what it says. Unless they're your Nintendo and you actually can put all your first party games on the cartridge fully, then most third party supports has a very attraction to the game key cards just because they can make a lot more money. They can save a lot more money in costs, and they don't have to care much about that consumer can own the game or not, because they'll give you the illusion, and the average person is not going to mind that, let's be honest.
Now here's why this really matters, and why developers and publishers are choosing this route. According to leaks, specifically from NIS America, producing a 64GB Switch 2 cartridge costs around $17 per unit. $17 just for the cartridge. Now compare that to a Blu-ray disc on PS4.
So it's $17. So as I was saying there, I kind of was pretty close in my prediction right there. I've been hearing that around $16, $17 for a 64GB Switch 2 cartridge.
5 or Xbox Series X, which costs like less than $1. That's a massive difference.
Wow, that's crazy. That's why you could put all those PS5 games on a disc, especially those indie titles. They could fit there no problem.
And if you're a third-party developer trying to keep costs low, that $17 per unit is a deal breaker. So your options are: eat the cost and risk losing money, charge $80 for a physical version and hope people bite, or go digital or use a cheap keycard that gives you the illusion of physical while saving a ton of production costs. Guess which one they're picking? Now I see this all the time online. I'd totally pay $70 or even $80 for a full physical version of Yakuza 0 Director's Cut or Final Fantasy Rebirth. Cool. I believe you. I'd probably do it too. But let's be honest, most people wouldn't. Most people aren't collectors. They aren't thinking about resale value or preservation. They just want to play the game now.
You know, it's funny that they mentioned Yakuza 0 and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, because those are two games that takes a humongous amount of space in your hard drive, because, you know, those games are very graphically intense and very, very open world. Oh, I know that Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth is open world. I'm not sure about Yakuza. You could fill me in on that just in case. You put those two games on an internal space of Switch 2, and trust me, it's pretty much gonna run out of space after that, or getting close to it. Like, I guarantee that after you get those two games in the game key card and you try to install it on your hard drive, you're not gonna have much space for much else, to be honest, unless you get the express card. So that's where they got you there. That's why I care about game key cards being a thing, and that I do not want it to be a thing. When I say I care about it being a thing, is that, you know, I'm paying a lot of attention that this is gonna be a problem if it becomes a thing for in the long term, because if you had it in the cartridge, you wouldn't have to use that much hard drive space. And that's why I always went physical on the Nintendo Switch. Almost always. I do have some digital games, but most of my games are physical. And for that the fact, if most of my games were digital, then I wouldn't be able to fit half of the stuff in the hard drive. So basically, if you have Yakuza 0 and Final Fantasy 7 Remake or Rebirth on your hard drive, which is 256 gigabytes if I'm not mistaken, if you have that much there already, I'm pretty sure your hard drive's gonna be filled plenty. Like almost all your hard drive space is going to be filled with those two games alone. So if more games starts becoming key cards and stuff like that, you're going to have to buy even more micro SD express cards so you can fit more of those games and be able to play without taking a long time to download. Because trust me, I do not like those download long wait times, because my download speed is okay for basics, for starters, but it's not like super quick like, you know, people with premium internet is, I would say. So, you know, I have to wait like several hours for me to download Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, because apparently it's like 88 to 170 something gigabytes. I don't know exactly how much. For some reason, the Steam Deck said it was 170 something, and then when it downloads like 80 something. Maybe that's one half and the other half is the rest of the gigabytes. I don't know. But that's what I have been observing. So I want you to think of that real quick. Why getting key cards long term it's gonna pretty much screw off gaming. And a lot of people's already used to downloading digital, but for me, I buy most of my games physical because if I ever want to play a new game and stuff, I can just pop in the thing and just play it right away. I don't have to wait a very long download time for most of the game, except for like Dragon Ball The Breakers. I kind of had to wait on that because it was required, but you get the idea. Most of my games are physical completely, and all the contents are in the cartridge.
Now, for as little money as possible. So while you and I are willing to pay more for that boxed copy, the average person is going to look at the price tag and go, I'll just download it. And publishers know that. So if you're wondering why everything is going digital and why physical options are getting worse, that's why. Let's go back to Switch 1 for a second. Tears of the Kingdom, the only Nintendo published Switch 1 game that launched at $70. Why? Because it was massive. Bigger file size. Needed a bigger, more expensive cartridge. Now look at Switch 2. Every game is $70, even the small ones. Think that's a coincidence? Or is it because they're all using the same 64GB cartridge, regardless of file size? It's possible we're paying more not because the games cost more to make, but because there's no cheaper cartridge tier anymore. Everything is...
And I wonder why Nintendo chose not to have cheaper cartridge options, like a 32 or 16 gig or even an 8 gig. Why is it only a 64GB cartridge and a keycard?
Investors question Nintendo about the keycard situation, and Nintendo says they're here to stay. Let's talk about it. Keycards have been a hot topic because people like me really don't like them. They're basically empty cartridges that have nothing but a code that allows you to download the rest of the game from their servers. And when you buy physical media, it's because you want to collect it, but it's also because you just want access to your games at all times rather than having to rely on a server. That's why things like Stop Killing Games is so important, so we can actually have access to our games once we buy them. Well, in the latest investors meeting, Nintendo was asked directly by an investor about keycards and how it's affecting third-party sales. So the investor asked if Nintendo was concerned that these keycards are going to cause third parties to not want to put their games on the Switch 2, and if so, why would they choose to go with the keycard solution? And the answer is probably not what you want to hear if you're a keycard hater like myself. Nintendo doubled down. They basically said that cartridges are really expensive to make right now, and they're just not making enough of them to be able to reduce the price. And in order to not lose third-party support, they decided to make the keycard a solution, so that way third parties could actually put their games on the console and still have a physical media to sell to people. And Nintendo's not concerned because they say that the Switch 2 has more built-in space, which makes it easier to have this as an option. Because the Switch 1 had a lot less internal space, which meant that if they wanted to have bigger games, they wouldn't really fit within the built-in Switch, and they always have to think of the people that are at the bottom who don't purchase any peripherals and just go with the base hardware. And with the Switch 2, there's built-in memory, so they can go and install multiple games that are large, and it won't really be an issue for a Switch user who hasn't bought a memory card. And so this is probably the long-term reality, because when Nintendo answers questions that gamers ask, they're willing to lie to get your money. But when they're talking to investors, they're telling the truth because they don't want to shake their confidence. This means that the keycards are probably going to be here to stay, whether you like them or not, and there's not much we can do about it.
And then obviously most third party are going to be enticed for the keycard because they barely spend next to nothing on those keycards, and then they can make a lot more profit with the sales. Well, a lot of those keycards are not selling as much as they would have if they had it on the cartridge. So Nintendo's to blame when it comes to giving them options, first and foremost. And then the third party was enticed to it because, they want to save as much money as possible, but not caring about that there are a lot of collectors out there, but there's a lot of consumers that they don't care about that and they still buy it anyway. So I think that's what they're focusing on, to be honest.
Maxed out. Now let me play devil's advocate for a second. Game key cards might suck, but they're not nothing. They still let you resell the game, trade it with a friend, own something physical. Avoid being completely tied to a digital storefront. That's not nothing. It's not ideal, but it's better than paying $70 for a digital-only download that you can't even refund or trade.
Yeah, like I said, that's a valid argument. You can still sell keycard games. Anyone that buys a keycard, they install on their Switch, they could automatically get their game online, and then they install it, because when you take out the cart, you're not going to be able to play the game, even if it's digital. But once you put the card in, it works just like the virtual game cards that you're like passing and sharing between consoles and stuff. But yeah, there's only like one copy of that, so you can't really multiply it or anything like that unless the key card itself is in the cartridge. You cannot play with it or anything like that. It's just there taking space pretty much.
So maybe this is Nintendo's weird way of saying, hey, we know you want physical, but this is as close as we can get without tanking profits. Now, Nintendo did mention that the Switch 2 has more internal storage, and sure, that's true, but it's still not enough. you will need to buy a micro SD card. And if you want those super fast micro SD express cards, get ready to shell out.
Which is a requirement on Switch 2, by the way. It's not going to work on any normal micro SD card. It's only working on the express cards, just letting you know.
They were cheap before launch. I told y'all to stock up. I paid $30 for one. Now, some are $60 or more. Prices spiked as soon as Switch 2 dropped. So yeah, the idea that bigger storage makes keycards better is kind of flimsy. You're still going to be juggling space, managing downloads, and spending more money anyway. So where do we go from here? Honestly, I don't know if there is a good answer right now. You could demand full physical releases, but they'll cost more. You could boycott game keycards.
And how about this? How about, I don't know, make a petition to see how many people can vote on having it physical or pre-ordering it that way? So you just make that amount of physical releases completely on the cartridge, and then everything else can be sold as game keycards. So you could make it upon request, so that way everyone wins pretty much. And like, you don't have to make more than you should. Because, you know, cutting your profits if you make too much to them and they don't sell, right? So, why is it that Nintendo don't choose to do that? Well, because they want us all to go to an all digital future and want us to own nothing and be happy. And they want us to have the illusion that we're owning something, which we're not.
People won't. You could just go all digital and give up any ownership or resale options. No matter what, someone loses. And Nintendo? They're making a business decision, not an emotional one. They're not thinking about your shelf, they're thinking about their margins. So yeah, Nintendo heard the criticism, they responded, and they pretty much said, this is the way, take it or leave it. That's where we're at. And unless people stop buying game key cards, stop pre-ordering $70 games, and stop accepting half physical releases, this is the new normal. It's not great.
Yeah, and that's the truth about this whole matter. That's the dark truth. Is that basically there's always gonna be the casual crowd out there that's gonna opt into that option because they grew up on digital games. There's already a generation, like Generation Alpha, they were born into the digital media, that the digital media was the norm. Even though physical releases were still normal at the time. But as we're seeing right now, more and more people are seeing the convenience of going digital, just buying the game and then being able to play it directly there, no problem, without having to take out the physical cartridge and put it on their Switch. You know how much of an effort you have to do to take out a physical cartridge from a case and then opening the latch on the Switch 1 or 2 and then holding the latch in its place so that way you could put the physical game there. And you know, a lot of people don't want to do that. They just want to play the game right away. They don't want to do all that hassle, and that's why people are getting very used to it. So we cannot control that crowd, unfortunately. We may want physical games, but unfortunately we're not gonna be able to do much with what people want. We can't force them to go physical. You know, we are in a completely different world, completely different generation. Nintendo has decided this is the most profitable for them, and it's true. And yeah, it is what it is. But at least hopefully there will be a certain group of people that will also cater to the people that wants to physically collect the game, even if there's a limited amount of them out there because of limited run, for example, that they have a limited amount of copies that are physical and they're dedicated physical. Everything is on the cartridge and stuff or on the disc. So yeah, that's the type of market that we're entering. That's going to be a smaller market for the physical media, like me and maybe you as well. So yeah, what you guys think? I hope this commentary helped. And this is gonna be not the same anymore. Nintendo told us that physical media is dead. And it's just gonna get worse from here when it comes to physical media. Only time will tell like how far this will go or if people are actually gonna push back. But honestly, most people are probably not gonna care too much about physical media because they were born with it. Or they just find it too convenient and stuff. So yeah, before I go, you can check out my channel at Magbo Gaming. You could check out my game collecting videos, me visiting different gaming stores to game hunt, or different topics I talk about that is in the gaming industry, especially Nintendo, because that's what I focus on mostly. You can check out Angry Guy's Rumble as well, where there is no censorship whatsoever there in comparison to YouTube. He also uploads there, so feel free to also support him there very much. And also check out the Angry Crypto Academy if you want to learn how to invest into crypto. And know that this is like a type of thing where you'll be able to own something, unlike the companies that you will own nothing and be happy. Anyways, I'll see you all in the next one. Magbo out, and peace.